Hey everyone, it's Jonathan. Welcome to the long-awaited fourth part in our six-part series on Wallace and Gromit. I'm joined once more by Sarah, Nicki, and Dan, and we are talking about Curse of the Were-Rabbit. August is a bit of a whirlwind for me at the moment, but there will be some Patreon stuff related to this series up as soon as I can get to them. There will be an extended version of this episode that is a double-length episode combining this and next week's episode on A Matter of Loaf and Death, and we will also have a long episode of more of our many tangents that we had along the way.
So, which movie are we starting with?
Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
Okay.
This came out...
2005.
Yeah.
Yeah, Were Rabbit was 05, Matter of Loaf and Death was 08.
Oh, that's right, 08. Either way, Curse of the Were-Rabbit comes before Matter of Loaf and Death. But, as with most Wallace and Gromit things, it doesn't really matter. I mean, as with most Aardman things, there's really the timeline doesn't matter as much. I think the only one the timeline really counts in is between Chicken Run and Chicken Run 2.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's only one thing that might possibly change things up a little bit, and that is that this film really kind of opens up the world of Wallace and Gromit a little bit. Like, in the shorts, it's very location-based. It's like, you know, Wrong Trousers is pretty much all set in the house, but occasionally there's like a shot at the museum. Close Shave is basically the house, the wool shop, and Preston's factory. Most of the adventures kind of take place homebound and maybe at one, possibly two other locations, but it's very fixed. Whereas this is the first time in the series where it becomes a community almost, where it's a large group of people and, you know, there are neighbors and there are like multiple locations that people go to. And after this film, the series kind of embraces that quite a bit more. Matter of Loaf and Death obviously features multiple locations, and Vengeance Most Foul as well as multiple characters and locations. So it's kind of the start of Wallace and Gromit shifting from just the adventures of two rather eccentric individuals into something a bit more community driven, I would say.
A town full of eccentric individuals.
I would
Very
like
much
to
so.
live there.
Very quotable, eccentric individuals.
Yes.
You know, their tagline for the town could be something bunny is going on.
At least during this
Perfect.
time period.
We're simple folk, that's all we have.
My thoughts on Were Rabbit are pretty succinct, honestly. Basically, my feeling on Were Rabbit is that it's a good film for introducing people to Wallace and Gromit, but my problem with it is it kind of sits in the middle of the pack because it feels more like they borrowed a lot of ideas from the shorts and kind of just brought them back in and gave them a bit of a repolish. So, for example, they recreate the Gromit plane sequence from A Close Shave again in Were Rabbit. They do some jokes from The Wrong Trousers and A Grand Day Out in Were Rabbit. They kind of reference the older shorts a bit heavy-handedly. It's one where I think that I like it more than A Matter of Loaf and Death, and I think it by a knife's edge I like it a little bit more than A Close Shave, but it kind of sits in that part of the spectrum. If like The Wrong Trousers and A Grand Day Out are like the top of the tree ones, Were Rabbit kind of sits a little back from them. It's still really good, and I think, like I say, it's a good introduction to Wallace and Gromit, and it kind of sets expectations, but I don't necessarily think I would say, oh yeah, this is my favorite one, this is the one that I love the most. It's just kind of, it's like, yeah, okay, it's there, I'm down to watch it, it's good. And that's kind of where I am with it, honestly.
I think I have warmer feelings than you do.
I think I'm probably kind of in the middle too. Like I like it. It's not one that I've really revisited a ton of.
Well, like, we don't revisit it a ton, but it's very quotable.
Well, that's true.
And, I mean, even just the scene with Mrs. Mulch.
I forgot that joke. When that happened, I about died. And it, like, a burp or a fart joke has to be, like, actually funny to make me laugh, because normally they annoy me very much. And when that happened, I about died laughing.
So subtle. The level of Britishness in this film and the different jokes that are made,
That is one thing I can say for this movie. Like, most of the time I get annoyed by like bodily humor jokes, but like that belch scene, that was genuinely hilarious.
Yes. And I'm probably even more in the direction of bodily humor. Okay, whatever. I have a sister that's the opposite, but that one, it's the humor of familiarity and awkwardness. It's like, you know, this person that you're going.
And also the comedic timing, because there was like just the beat between the belch and Mrs. Mulch.
Sounds like you. On the scene where he goes to figure out how to get rid of the were-rabbit and just going back and forth about a bullet. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I don't need bare bum humor in anything, but I think my family does like to quote "Beware the Moon" from this film, not from any.
I'll say for me, this was my kind of introduction to Wallace and Gromit. So it does hold that place of, you know, it's charming as an introduction and to get to know the characters. But it's one of those things too where that's where you start and you kind of grow and you get more into the universe of it. And you do see both the positives and the negatives, and you see the lines and where everything goes, and it still holds up for me as a good movie. But I do think that there are other things that have taken the place as it being as the thing that was my favorite. So
There's very little that I would seek out as a Halloween time show. Like, I can think Charlie Brown and Over the Garden Wall, but this one is in there where I would actually watch this at that time of year.
oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Not every year, because there's only, I don't have huge rituals around Halloween or anything, but it's, yeah, I can handle that level of intrigue. That's charming.
It's a warm fuzzy kind of a thing,
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I like warm
Yeah.
fuzzy.
especially if it's your introduction to it. So
Absolutely. I think it's it's exactly like you've just said, Sarah. Every Halloween, me and my partner, we do a bit of a sort of all day movie lock-in where we sort of wake up around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning and we just watch horror films and give out candy through the day. And we always kind of try and structure it so that the lighter-hearted, more family-oriented Halloween films play during the day, and it gets sort of harder and harder through the day until you get to the evening. Then you start putting out the big horror films, the ones people sort of know and love. And this is the kind of film that I would maybe put out at the same time as I'm doing things like Garfield's Halloween Adventure or Charlie Brown, This is the Great Pumpkin. It's one of those that kind of I think would sit really comfortably if you had like a family-oriented Halloween party or something, and you wanted to watch a couple of movies with
Yeah.
with everybody and not get too scared, but at the same time, maybe have a couple of little spooky moments in just to kind of spice things up a little bit.
But probably not from this film, since I don't know of anything on here that's really that horrifying.
Well, I don't know, the transformation sequence from Wallace to the Were-Rabbit. Oh, no spoilers there, but that gets pretty intense, and I imagine for smaller children that'd be. I mean, when my sister was growing up, she was terrified of the transformation in The Nutty Professor. So if that can do it, I'm sure Wallace growing floppy ears almost certainly will traumatize somebody.
all I can tell you is that those poor carrots and the massacre of them sticks with me.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Also, Wallace Rabbit, not the Were-Rabbit, the Wallace Rabbit. When it starts evolving more into Wallace, is genuinely a bit unsettling. Like his face starts kind of morphing more into Wallace's, and it just made me kind of recoil a little bit.
That's more unsettling in the way that, like, if you imagine it happening to you, like you find this little creature and it starts slowly turning into you, that would be unsettling.
I don't need to overthink this. If I wasn't scared of it to begin with, let's not start infusing this with more meaning than it needs to have. If you just imagine an animal out there that looked kind of like you all of a sudden. Really humanoid, but not. Like I just stumbled out of some sort of cloning operation that wasn't going well.
I need to look into this. I need to see if there's an actual like David Cronenberg style horror film like this. Because if there isn't, it should exist. There should be a film where somebody finds a creature that slowly starts turning into them, and they
It
slowly
does
start
sound like
turning
a
into the
horror
creature.
movie.
Very
It
much.
does. It does.
Also, they're not vegetarians, are they? They're just really into gardening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very British custom. Vegetation and vegetable growth is kind of seen the same way as floristry is over here.
Oh, got
So,
it.
like, growing vegetables and allotment work can kind of just be seen as a hobby rather than kind of a lifestyle choice.
What do you mean allotment work?
I don't know. Just to clarify, allotments are a US thing as well as a UK thing, aren't they? Just so I'm not inventing the wheel again.
Not really. The
Right.
first time I heard about it was Doctor Who, so
Oh, okay. So basically, during World War II, there was a real drive for British people to grow their own vegetables because we were
Right.
having severe shortages of farms providing. So councils in communities started buying up large patches of land and converting them essentially into grow areas where people could pay a small amount of money every month, every quarter, every year to rent one of those patches, and they could effectively use it for any kind of growing purposes they wanted. So if you want to grow vegetables, fruits, if you wanted to grow flowers, and you didn't have the space at home to grow them, you could rent these allotment patches, which would usually come sometimes. I mean, it depends on where you are and what you're trying to rent, but sometimes they come with a shed and a greenhouse kind of as a standard, but sometimes it is literally just a big patch of land. Well, I say a big patch of land. It's about the size of a sort of footprint of an average suburban house, sometimes smaller, and you can kind of just rent that to grow vegetables and things like that. So yeah,
So you said like a greenhouse could be an allotment as well.
yeah. So on the land, some councils, if you go a little bit more upmarket in your garden growing, some councils will provide like a small garden shed and a greenhouse so that you can like grow tomatoes, strawberries, things like that. And a shed is obviously somewhere you can keep your tools if you don't want to have to ferry a shovel and a fork and things like that up and down from your house to the allotment.
So does this explain the sheer number of greenhouses on this movie? Because, I mean, I would love to have a greenhouse myself, but I don't know how many people actually have them in the United States.
It probably would. I mean, I know that vegetable growing is much more of a thing up north than it is down south. I'm in the Midlands, so I'm kind of caught between the two of them. But they do have very avid competitions on vegetable growing up north. Sometimes it can be the sheer volume of produce produced from a single growth. Sometimes it can be size. Sometimes it can be quality. But greenhouses amongst gardeners in the UK are a lot more commonplace, mainly because the weather is so changeable around here because we're in the middle of a jet stream, that if you tried to grow things like tomatoes or strawberries without a greenhouse, odds are they'd probably perish within the growing cycle just because it only takes a couple of cold snaps in the UK and half your produce is dead. So at least with a greenhouse, you kind of have a bit of a better chance of keeping them alive.
Well, that was educational.
For what it's worth, I do know people over here that do have greenhouses, but yeah, I think the setup of them and everything, and being that the way that the temperatures roll, and you've got like the little mini ones that you would use for say like herbs and things like that, I don't think you see quite the proliferation that you would see there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in recent years as well, we've seen a shift from glass greenhouses to plastic ones because they're a bit more, I wouldn't say environmentally friendly, but economically friendly because it only takes a couple of teenagers and a rock and you've broke your greenhouse, whereas somebody would have to do some real damage to rip up a plastic greenhouse. So,
I feel like here maybe people are doing more in their basements with, but yeah, with growing things, that is, not throwing rocks.
I mean, we don't know how many people are throwing rocks, but hopefully it's not a proliferation of that.
I would hope not. I would really hope not because that would be horrible.
I'm not even sure how we got here, but
allotments.
yeah.
Well, I guess we could talk about the cast. This is the first one where we've got a massive cast, and there's a few people that are like big names, but all of them I think were people that I had seen in other things. Although some of them kind of surprised me when I looked them up. Like the Reverend was Nicholas Smith, who played Mr. Rumbold in Are You Being Served?
That was fantastic. I love his character.
Oh, yes.
Old jug ears.
And the Constable Albert McIntosh, he was played by Peter Kay, who I really only knew as somebody on Doctor Who. He played to most people, one of the worst monsters, the Absorbalov, in the episode Love and Monsters, which I love that episode up until the end. But he's kind of universally known as one of the worst monsters on Doctor Who.
Yeah, I mean he's very, very famous in the UK, mainly for stand-up comedy. He produced a few comedy programs over here that have kind of become a bit of an institution in UK comedy. One called Peter Kay's Phoenix Nights, and another one called That Peter Kay Thing. He's not very well known outside of the UK, but he's the kind of comedian where he fills stadiums and like whether you are an 80-year-old man or a 12-year-old kid, you know at least one or two of his kind of catchphrasey sort of key jokes. But he is very much an observational comedian. His humour's very much kind of, do you remember this? Do you see this? You know, that kind of style. Yeah. Imagine kind of the closest I can kind of compare him to is Jerry Seinfeld, but it's not the same style of comedy, but it's that kind of level of observation. Like one of the ones was he also plays to very northern crowds. Like one of his jokes he always used to do was very conservative, very reserved English people go into a sort of buffet and they find garlic bread on the buffet items and they're just absolutely bewildered by it. They're like, garlic bread? Bread with garlic bread? You're joking. No, I'm not going anywhere near that. Don't bring that anywhere near. And then they try it and they're like, that is lovely. Garlic bread, it's the future. I've tasted it. But yeah, he's very kind of observational and sort of led like that. He's got two shows. I think both of them are on the Internet Archive. One's called Peter Kay Live at the Top of the Tower, which was he did a live gig at Blackpool Tower, and another one was called Peter Kay My Mum Wants a Bungalow Tour, which was a tour he ran to try and raise funds to get his mum a bungalow because she wasn't happy in a 2-story house.
One of my favorite side characters is probably more because of who plays them. You have Liz Smith as Mrs. Mulch. But I just love Liz Smith. Like, I think the first place I ever saw her was on Vicar of Dibley because she plays one of the most memorable characters on that show, Mrs. Cropley. But she's also one of the grandparents in the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. She's in a lot of things, but I just love Liz Smith. She's so great.
I'm just going to say, looking at her picture, she looks, just her face, she looks like she belongs in Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, kind of. Yes.
Oh, yeah. She is very, she's very, again, quite renowned for comedy in the UK. She has that sort of sensibility about her. Like I say, a performance in The Vicar of Dibley very much lends itself, I feel, to a Wallace and Gromit environment. So, and this is also, I would say, the start of where Aardman as a company start leaning more on northern comedians specifically to try and, you know, bolster the sort of casting. So like after this film you get people like Sally Lindsay and Reece Shearsmith, and Peter Kay comes back a couple of times, and they really sort of start cementing the kind of northern aesthetic of Wallace and Gromit. Whereas I think before this film being up north was kind of a trait of it, but I don't think it was something that they led with necessarily, whereas they start to do that more often from this film onwards, I would say.
Would you say that's why they pulled in the Lancaster versus Yorkshire jokes?
Oh, yeah, almost certainly. Almost certainly. Obviously, Yorkshire and Lancashire have had a bit of a history, so I think that's part of that, leaning into the sort of northern towns and cities sensibility kind of thing. You see it as well starting to creep in more and more with like adverts in the background, like, you know, in The Wrong Trousers it's adverts for Burt's Buns and Snoozy Chock, and by the time you get to here it's much more kind of Yorkshire puns or sort of Yorkshire cultural puns or Lancashire cultural puns, things like that. So
cool.
Even though I'm sure I don't understand a bunch of them, it does give these a flavor that is so unique to Wallace and Gromit and Aardman.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's very distinct. I mean, one of the big complaints about the UK television and film industry is that the north of England has seemingly basically been abandoned. We only have a handful of programs that are based in the north of England that aren't sort of derogatory towards people in the north of England.
Mm.
Um, I mean, it would be a bit like if the representation of the American South started and ended with the Beverly Hillbillies and Blanche from the Golden Girls, and that's kind of it. So, like, it's nice to see a program represent sort of the north of England in a way that isn't sort of playing up on stereotypes too much. It's kind of laughing with the population rather than at them.
Well, that's good.
There's 3 characters that I had to look them up to see exactly who they were because I didn't remember their names, but I thought they all had voices worth noting. Miss Blight, Miss Thrip, and Mr. Leaching. Miss Blight was voiced by Mark Gatiss, who is a writer on Doctor Who and also played one of my least favorite monsters, Professor Lazarus. I kind of hate that episode.
Oh yeah, he is also a very well respected comedian and film historian in the UK. He wrote a BBC comedy series called The League of Gentlemen, which is a very, very rude and naughty, dark comedy for the BBC, but it was very, very funny. He's written quite a few Stephen Moffat era Doctor Who stories as well, which was very good.
Mm-hmm.
But he's one of these people who just pops up randomly on BBC comedies and in films as well. He just keeps turning up in random places, playing random characters, and it's always very nice to see him. He has this very unique style of presenting himself where he's very good at kind of smarmy isn't quite the right word, but like he's the kind of person who can say the most horrendous things whilst maintaining just the most disgusting smile you've ever seen in your life. Just very kind of, he'd be excellent in like an office environment if he was trying to fire people, because he's just got that very warm smile and he can say anything with it, and it's very wonderful. It's also worth noting as well that a good chunk of the League of Gentlemen have appeared in Wallace and Gromit films over the years because they are all northern based. Reece Shearsmith, who turns up in Vengeance Most Foul, was also a member of the League of Gentlemen and is very good friends with Mark Gatiss. So he plays Norbot.
Oh, yes.
It is a relatively small community when you're talking about like actors in the UK, because you do see a lot of crossover. Like just generally between, film and TV, and not to say that it's not wide, like there's a wide net, but it does seem like there's a lot of crossover that you don't necessarily get here in the States.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it comes down as well to the fact that a lot of British performers are kind of, there's very few of them who feel kind of duty bound to their genre. So, Mark Gatiss is a perfect example. He started in comedy, but he has since shifted to sci-fi, to straight drama. He's been in films that have covered, romance films, action films, thrillers. And one of his more notable recent things was he did a documentary series charting, first of all, the history of horror films from 1890 through to the present day. And then he did a sister series that followed the advent of cult cinema from 1890 to the present day. They were both very, very good and highly recommended.
Very cool.
Because they've got that kind of wry smile to them whenever he's talking about stuff, because obviously he's one of us in the sense of he kind of grew up, watching all of these films, and it's quite nice really, because he gets sent to interview people who were involved in the films that he was watching when he was like 12, 13 years old, and there's this kind of just a twinkle in his eye, as he's not the sort of person who gets particularly emotional, but you can just see it in the way he looks at people he's interviewing, that he has a lot of respect for these people because he kind of grew up with them. So it's a great series. I'll need to find the title of it, but it's really good.
Nice.
Well, the next person was Miss Thrip, played by Geraldine McEwen, and I didn't remember this, but she was also in A Matter of Loaf and Death. So they brought the character back for like a cameo. She's not somebody that I'm super familiar with. I think she was Miss Marple at one point, which I've not seen Miss Marple.
No, I haven't seen Miss Marple either.
I've actually
just seeing if there's anything I know her
used
from.
to watch which I'm not necessarily recommending, but yeah, I know who you're talking about.
It was the one from 2004 to 2009. There's more than one Miss Marple, so.
Well, she's the one that I used to watch.
Okay.
That's like Hercule Poirot.
Yeah, another British detective I've never seen. I just know the name.
He's got some good ones out there. Like there's a Kenneth Branagh one, but then there's one from the 90s, 80s, and 90s that's fantastic as well.
Well, the last townsperson that I thought was worth mentioning was Mr. Leaching, but really only because he's voiced by Ben Whitehead, and Ben Whitehead would go on to take over the character of Wallace once Peter Sallis passed away. So he was here long before he needed to take over, but he does such a great Peter Sallis impression that you almost wouldn't even know unless you were told.
Oh yeah, the way he says the bounce has gone out of his bungee is unparalleled.
And then, of course, you have Ray Fine as Lord Victor Quatermain and Helena Bonham Carter as Lady Campanula Tottington. And apparently a campanula is a type of flower, which I would not have known except for looking up trivia for this. Which makes sense based on her character in this town.
And totty is British slang for attractive woman.
Nice.
Oh.
So, yeah.
So if you have a hot toddy, does that mean you have a hot lady with you as compared to a drink?
I think that's spelled with
well,
D's instead of T's.
Oh, yeah, fair point.
Yeah. If you think that somebody is a piece of totty, you think they're a bit of all right. You think you're going to be, having very kind words and buying them a drink maybe later.
I feel like there was a line from an old Bing Crosby movie in the song, something like, "Here comes my," it was to, Fred Astaire and Bing Crosby, "Here comes my hot toddy over my dead body." Like they were vying for her.
I thought it was interesting that a bunch of this movie was changed based on market research, because originally the title was going to be The Great Vegetable Plot, but apparently market research disliked this, so they changed it.
I like that. That's a nice play on words.
That is.
I do too.
Yeah.
Were Rabbit is more descriptive, but I don't know, The Great Vegetable Plot just sounds like a Wallace and Gromit title.
It does. I do love how that title in mind, it does play into a lot of the classic Universal monsters. Like it feels like it belongs in that realm, and they really lean into that side of it, it felt like to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that it's shot and the way that the reveals happen, silhouettes, all of that stuff, it kind of gives you that feel.
There is a lot of overlap as well with Hammer and Amicus in these films as well. Not just in the fact that some of the cast have actually ended up working in Hammer and post Amicus films, but you get things like the way that things are framed, like the bit where his name escapes me, Broadbent's character,
Um,
Totty's love rival,
Ray Fine, Lord
Ray
Victor
Fiennes,
Quatermain.
Victor Quartermain, where he goes to see the priest, and it's all very kind of filmed and framed like an Amicus or Hammer production, where it's flashes of lightning and everything's slightly Dutch angled, and
Yeah.
it's nice that they leaned into those older cinema aesthetics a little bit, because I feel it kind of suits. Like, one of the things that the north of England is very renowned for is tradition and sort of traditional sort of stylings. So leaning into that kind of Hammer and Amicus style kind of is quite fitting for a film like this, because those films are sort of seen as the groundwork for contemporary horror. So seeing those sort of transformation sequences and things like that were very reminiscent of early Hammer to me.
you would honestly expect something like Peter Cushing to come into that church kind of in that same shot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm convinced that the Vicar is kind of a halfway house between Peter Cushing in Frankenstein or Dracula and Professor. Oh, what's his name? Professor.
Van Helsing?
No, the character from Bride of Frankenstein, the
Oh, the old
eccentric
guy.
doctor.
Lazarus, was it? Not Lazarus. Zaius?
I mean, I'm gonna have to
I
look
know
this
who
up.
you're
I do
talking about.
apologize. Yeah,
He looks like the one guy from the Burbs with the crazy hair.
yeah. Where is he?
Dr. Septimus?
Septimus, yeah, that was the one. Like, the mannerisms of the Vicar are kind of a hybrid between him and Peter Cushing, I would say.
I could
I
see
wouldn't
that.
be surprised if that's on purpose. There were so many send-ups of old horror movies in this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's kind of interesting that you talk about it leaning into like more traditional things. That apparently is sort of one of the things that kind of put Nick Park off from doing another feature film for so long, because like this was part of the DreamWorks agreement where they were working with DreamWorks, and DreamWorks kept sending them notes about making things more trendier, which he hated. Like they wanted Wallace's car to be more trendier, but he wanted everything to be more old-fashioned because that's just the vibe of Wallace and Gromit.
Oh yeah.
And he said that all of the notes from DreamWorks were basically discouraged him from making another feature film for years.
I always quite liked Mel Brooks' approach to producer notes, which was to upfront say, "Yep, absolutely, we'll make all those changes. Don't you worry about it," and then just put them in the bin. And they never. And he said they never remembered. He said they never remembered any of the notes they sent. Like in the moment, they'd send him like, "Change this, change that, change." They go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, we'll do it, no trouble." Then just wouldn't, and they never picked it up on him.
That's great.
On that kind of classic vibe, I love to like the names of all of Wallace's inventions. Like they very much harken back to kind of a 50s aesthetic. Like you go back and everything was the, this Orama or the that Omatic, and you've got like the Bunvac 6000, you've got the Mind Manipulation Omatic. There was a couple of others. That just all the different pieces, like it's not just a thing, it's a thing-o-matic or whatever, so I love the way that all of them are named. That's so cool.
I like how it kind of ties back as well to Wallace being simultaneously a very creative inventor, but also very limited creatively as well. Like everything is a nomadic or a one of those types of devices, and it's very creative, sort of in the creation of, but it is a bit ramshackled in its actual construction and workability. So it's nice to kind of see that lean into his character a little bit as well.
I never thought of it before, but that aspect of him reminds me of, have you guys ever seen Phineas and Ferb?
Mm-hmm.
The villain in that, Dr. Doofenshmirtz. He's kind of the same way because everything is an innator, but they're all like fantastically weird inventions that do very randomly specific things.
I think, didn't they do an episode where he invented something called the Omatic, which was a machine that makes Omatic machines?
I don't remember, but that sounds like something he might do.
Also, do you guys think that Wallace is like a Time Lord? Because the way that basement looks, it's so much bigger on the inside.
Yeah, the basement has no consistent size. Because you've got some scenes where it's just like a little basement, and then other times it's this giant cavernous room with a massive machine in the middle of it.
Probably more often than not.
I'm going to say that the house in itself is sentient and senses Wallace's needs.
Rearranges itself as appropriate.
Absolutely. It's a TARDIS.
That makes sense.
Or he's been digging.
TARDIS-o-matic. I'm sorry, a TARDIS-o-matic.
Whenever he has visitors, they walk in and go, "Oh, you've redecorated. Don't like it."
Where's the cheese?
Great. Now you want me to get Patrick Troughton in Wallace and Gromit, and I'm very disappointed because that'll never happen.
So do you guys have a massive rabbit problem over there? Because the thrust of this movie is they're exterminators, but nice exterminators. They don't actually kill the rabbits.
So it's kind of two unrelated problems. Like I'm almost certain that people who have allotments are very upset by the wildlife getting into their plums. But we do have large portions of the land that are sort of, I wouldn't say invaded by, but are overrun by wildlife like foxes, badgers, rabbits. They seem to mainly hang around retail parks, if I'm being completely honest. Like, there's a retail park about 15, 20 minutes drive away from where I live, and if you go down there after about 8 o'clock at night, the place is just overrun with rabbits, badgers, foxes, and there's tons of them, ducks, swans. If you can think of it, it's probably down there just wandering around outside of, like, Home Depot or something like that. It's wild. It really is. Like I say, I think people who have allotments are going to constantly be sort of pestered by, rabbits, foxes, badgers, because these allotment areas tend to be quite open spaces and usually are on the sort of cusps of woodland areas. So it's kind of inevitable unless you put good protections in place that, something's going to get in and try and eat your food.
How often do you see badgers?
Yeah, well, I live in a quite rural area, so I'm quite fortunate, really. I have seen in the last. They're not as common as you'd think. I see more foxes than I see badgers, but I've probably seen about 3 or 4 badgers in the last 5 years. So you probably see about one a year.
I'm way more likely to see foxes than badgers here.
Oh, yeah. We see foxes up here probably a couple of times every fortnight. There'll be at least one or two running around, and if you can't see them, you can hear them because they sound like somebody being murdered when they scream.
Are we talking about foxes or badgers?
Oh, we're foxes.
Well, yes, okay, that makes sense.
But we see all sorts. I mean, like I say, hedgehogs, moles are quite common over here as well.
Very lucky with the hedgehogs.
Oh, yeah, hedgehogs are gorgeous. Love hedgehogs. It's nice as well because you can sometimes leave them little bits of food and they'll come and have a little eat. Especially if you've got little cameras, you can kind of film them with a little feed. It's lovely.
That sounds precious.
Oh, yes. So yeah, I mean it's almost certainly dramatized and sort of cartoonified here. It's not like the second you start putting plants down, you're going to be overrun with rabbits or anything like that. But it's I would say it's an uncommon but not unlikely problem.
So you don't need to have people running around with shotguns and or giant vacuum cleaners.
Hey,
No,
vacuum
we're safe
cleaners
for now.
are a perk of the job.
Oh yeah, yeah. Invented in 1972 by Sir Henry Vacuum.
See?
You're making that up, aren't you? Vacuums were around long before then, but the name is great.
Now, before 1972, we had to use something called the Dusty Jeremy, which was which had to be bellowed by 6 firemen.
That really sounds like something that would be in some sort of a spoof on British life.
The accent that makes it realistic.
Probably. But the name does sound just so weirdly British. The Dusty Jeremy.
That's where the old British saying "he's burst his bellows" comes from.
One of the things that, I mean, we've already touched on it a little bit, is just the wordplay and the quotes. And the random things that Wallace puts into his inventions. Like when the part where they're like driving through the rain, but then they end up going underground and he has to like change the settings and on his car because he's like switching the windshield wipers. He's like light rain, heavy loam.
That's pretty good.
And then the Victor Quartermain, like I don't love him as a character, but he has a lot of great lines. And like the part where he like loses his toupee and he's like whispering, "I want toupee." And he's like, "Oh, whoever he's talking to is like, "Oh, we take check or cash." "No, my hair." "Oh, there's only rabbits in there. A hair is a much larger mammal." And then Wallace, the ways he talks about all of his inventions, like the pseudoscientific things that he puts in them, like when he's captured all the rabbits and he's like trying to brainwash them into not eating vegetables, and he says, "Their tiny bunny brains are being saturated in my veg-free mind waves."
It does raise the question, what would they have eaten if
That's the question I ask every time I watch this.
Yes, Wallace doesn't shoot them, but starving them to death, perfectly fine. Perfectly above board. That's their
hopefully
choice.
they're not gluten-free?
Oh, well, if they're like him, then they want cheese. But
True.
the rest of them didn't have enough time to...
I guess the Hutch one started wanting cheese.
Mm-hmm.
You can survive on tea and biscuits, can't you?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That would be
Done tea and
adorable.
biscuits before.
All the little rabbits just eating tea and biscuits.
And then they make money off of the attraction.
I can't find my notes. I thought I had taken notes on a couple things that I was going to talk about in this that were like specific British things. I remember a couple. One was at the end where Wallace has like he appears to be dead, but Gromit brings him back around with stinking bishop,
Yes,
which is a kind of cheese, which I don't
it
think
is.
you can get around here.
No, it is a unique cheese. I believe it's an offshoot of the Gorgonzola sort of blue cheese family. It's not massively commonplace, but if you are a blue cheese Stilton fan, you probably do get it in around Christmas time, things like that. It's not something that would be regularly in people's fridges.
Hmm.
I think they probably just liked the name Stinking Bishop.
It's understandable.
Sounds like a chess move.
Oh no, he's got him in a stinking bishop. Let's see if we can get out of this one. Let's hope he doesn't grab the smelly parson.
Well, the other thing that I remembered I wanted to talk about was something that they changed for the American version, because there's a vegetable in this that is called a melon in the American version, but I cannot find my notes. I think it's called a marrow.
Yeah.
Over there.
Like a giant zucchini.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I to be honest, I didn't even know that change was in there. In my version, it was just a marrow.
I don't remember,
yeah.
but on it. Oh,
The one part where they're like in a greenhouse and there's like a big chomp taken out of it, and they say melon in our version,
really?
but over there it's marrow.
They could have just kept it and make whoever Google it. You know, it's not that big of a deal.
Well, I mean, DreamWorks already had an issue with how fancy or not fancy Wallace's car was, so I don't think they're going to stick for having a vegetable that the Americans wouldn't know what it was.
It probably was just a note kind of thing. Maybe DreamWorks got in touch and were like, I don't know if US audiences will intrinsically know what a marrow is, but I don't know.
So
I
is
mean,
marrow
calling it a
different?
melon seems.
Is that different than a regular zucchini? Like, obviously it looks different, but like flavor-wise, do you eat a lot of marrow?
So marrows and zucchinis are the same thing, but I think the main difference lies in the family of marrow that you guys eat versus our guys. Like, I think ours comes from a different branch of the same family tree. But yeah, marrows and zucchinis are the same. I think the problem probably lay in the fact that with it being such an intrinsically British production, it might have been seen as unusual to have Wallace call the marrow a zucchini in the US version, because we don't refer to it as a zucchini at all over here.
I think it might be slightly different than a zucchini to begin with, but I could be wrong. Because I Google it and it says a mature fruit of the Cucurbita family closely related to zucchini, courgette, but grown larger and used as a vegetable.
Yes.
Like some of these look paler, maybe.
Yeah, there's a few different sort of families, and they kind of cross over with squashes quite a bit as well, which is why I'm thinking maybe you guys have a different family of zucchini. Courgettes also kind of cross into it a little bit as well. So it's a bit of an interesting one, really. I suppose, like I say, it probably was just easier to get the voice actor to say melon than zucchini.
Well, melon and marrow would also, like, you wouldn't have to reanimate the thing, because the mouth movement would be similar enough that I think that's more why they did it, was because the word is so similar and the thing looks basically like a melon.
That sounds like the probably the most likely answer, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm with Were Rabbit. It's like I say, I think it's kind of middle of the pack for me. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was bad by any stretch at all. But when you've got things like A Grand Day Out, The Wrong Trousers, A Close Shave, leading up to this, I think it takes everything that you liked about the first three, and it doesn't do anything particularly new with them, but it repackages them in a way that makes them more accessible. Because I think audiences are more inclined to sit through one 90-minute film than try and hunt down three 20-minute films, wherever they may be situated.
I think the main thing that this did differently was it took all of the stuff that they'd built up with the first three, but then turned it into kind of a spoof on all of the old classic horror movies.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
that part, I think, like, even though as a whole I do like the original ones better than this, as a spoof of a horror movie, this is one of my favorite movies in that genre, I guess you could say. Because I think that
Absolutely.
it's just brilliant, all the little things that they did. A lot of which I wouldn't even... I'm sure there's half the jokes in here I don't get because I haven't seen enough old classic horror movies. But the ones that I have seen, I think it's a brilliant spoof on them. So I can only imagine that for fans of classic horror movies, this would be a great spoof for them.
Yeah, no, completely agreed. It really was, to be fair, and it's nice because not only does it kind of parody existing tropes, but it almost invents some stuff in the process of bringing some things in, which is quite nice. It's nice to see them kind of roll with it. I mean, I suppose the only other thing that we haven't really spoken about is the fact that this did get a video game adaptation as well.
What?
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Let me see if I can find the. Yeah, so it was for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. And there is a video online where somebody is 100% completing the game, and it takes 7 hours and 11 minutes.
Mm.
You have to be a real super fan for that.
Apparently, it follows very closely the plot of the film. I don't know if it necessarily adds anything onto it, but there is behind the scenes footage of Peter Sellers recording extra voice lines for this,
I
which
mean,
I
I
think
could
is quite
see
funny.
aspects of the movie would work as a video game. Because is part of it like hunting the rabbits with the vacuum cleaner? Because that sounds like it could be a fun video game task.
I'll be honest, I don't know that much about it other than I know that it exists. And one of the things that I do think is quite funny is that Wallace's health bar in the game is a set of crackers.
So you have to eat crackers to keep your strength up.
Mm. I think it might be even a dual playable one where you kind of flick between playing as Wallace and Gromit across the game. Like I say, I could probably do with looking a bit more. There is a sequence, some mini games where you have to suck up rabbits. I know that much.
Okay.
Mm.
So you may get to do the vacuuming thing yet. Weirdly, as well, apparently there are mutated chickens in the game that don't even appear in the movie as villains that you can fight.
I wonder where those came from.
Apparently, as well, all the way through through the video game as well, they have lots of advertisements and branding dotted throughout the city that's all kind of based on the style of the things from the special. So you do see adverts for Snoozy Chop, but there's like loads of other stuff in a similar ilk where they'll use Northern humor to kind of like sell products like pizzas and things like that. So apparently, there's like a Guitar Hero section of the game where you have to make the decoy rabbit on top of the Wallace and Gromit car move in a particular way. So you have to hit the buttons in like the right sequence to get it to sort of do its various kind of movements.
That isn't one of the scenes that I was even considering would make for a video game. Well, I think that's probably all I've got to say about Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I think for people looking for a Wallace and Gromit movie, this was a good place to start. I think they improved on it with Vengeance Most Foul. But for a feature-length film version of a cartoon, they did a very good job because not every franchise can easily translate their characters into a well-made feature-length film. And I think that the Wallace and Gromit team did a great job with this.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Well, we will be back next time to talk about A Matter of Loaf and Death. But until then, do you guys want to let people know where they can find you if they'd like more from you? Sarah?
Turnip Wilson on Redbubble. Got my artwork on there.
And Nicki?
You can find me on YouTube at Trivial Theater. Stop by and say hi.
And Dan?
So you can find me on Letterboxd, YouTube, Blue Sky, and tytdreviews.com. We cover cult and obscure classics, so come drop by and say hi.
Okay, so we'll see you next time to talk about A Matter of Loaf and Death.
See you then.
Thanks for listening to iHeart Animation. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.